Bitcoin is dropping, and we're looking into whether this has anything to do with the new MiCA regulation from the EU that goes into effect today, because there's a lot of panic being spread around right now. Here, too, the big Bitcoin crash was announced for today, which clearly did not happen here, as was already mentioned in my video about it 2 days ago. Tether USDT faces stricter EU regulations today, limiting its use on exchanges like Coinbase. This causes price uncertainty, but remember, there's no reason to panic. There are now exciting developments around Tether USDT, because from today, the regulatory environment for stablecoins here in the EU is becoming much stricter, and that also means that the massive on-ramp for Bitcoin USDT Tether is really being restricted, at least partially taken down by exchanges here, by Coinbase and many others, and that ultimately leads to panic, to uncertainty, and you can see that reflected in the price here. At the same time, we have to remember that there's really no reason to panic. Samsung Mouse also says, hey, this is all just a ride. It's all just new, don't worry here. Michael Saylor also struck again and bought another 2,000 Bitcoin today. So it's important for you to understand that a lot of panic is being created here, but there's actually no reason to panic because all of the arguments that are being thrown on the table at the moment are, in part, really nonsensical and very far-fetched. But there are these big, influential accounts that are now going after Bitcoin, big and prominent Bitcoin haters and critics who see their chance and are launching a massive so-called anti-Bitcoin campaign, or whatever you want to call it, against Bitcoin as they perceive it. For example, we have here Jason from the All In podcast, who keeps taking shots at Bitcoin, as well as at Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, really has a significant viewership in the US. He might even be one of the most watched podcasters out there. And he's saying here, the fact that a shadow digital dollar would be created, meaning Tether USDT, which has grown to over $100 billion in market cap, with little to no oversight or regulation, and has reportedly become the default for despots and criminals, should be of extreme concern to regulators. Why on earth would governments give up control over their currency? So this is a massive accusation against Tether, implying that the whole Tether structure, meaning USDT, one of the biggest on-ramps to Bitcoin, essentially means that when traders want to get into Bitcoin, they often don't go directly through a bank account, but rather through stablecoins like USD Tether. He's basically saying that the whole setup is a house of cards and is bound to implode sooner or later. This is a narrative we keep hearing, and it consistently leads to uncertainty in the market. It keeps coming up, and now is the perfect moment with the delisting of USDT from various platforms. They're hitting hard and saying, hey, it's not just being delisted. It's also on the verge of collapsing, and if that happens, Bitcoin will collapse with it. Jacob King says Tether may be banned in Europe for. Here's Jacob King, and if you take a look, he's got 1.7 million impressions or views. You can really see that these are relevant accounts. He said that tomorrow Tether will officially be banned in Europe because it has refused to meet the regulatory requirements. Tether hasn't minted anything new in over 2 weeks, and nobody knows why. This has sent shockwaves through the crypto markets, so this is basically the 2021 reason why panic is being spread. People are just saying, hey, Tether is going to collapse now, the market is going to crash. And of course, many jump on that bandwagon and believe that the market is crashing, so they sell off and create panic selling. There are no major pullbacks. 70% pullbacks are nonsense to think the Bitcoin market is going to collapse. Remember, it's only in the European space where Tether is being regulated or heavily restricted, and generally, stablecoins are facing tighter regulations. Not just stablecoins, with the MiCA regulation coming into effect. Various exchanges are also going to be more strictly regulated. It'll be harder to send Bitcoin in and out of exchanges. Satoshi tests and more. Prove you're sending Bitcoin to your own wallet. Show it's your wallet. There's just more regulatory nonsense piled on top. It's getting harder to send Bitcoin in and out of exchanges. You have to do Satoshi tests and who knows what else. You need to prove that you're only sending Bitcoin to your own wallet, not to some random other wallet, so you have to show that it's your own wallet. This is just more regulatory nonsense piled on top. The Jacob King post then goes on to say that the ticking time bomb is about to explode, but we can see now that it has not exploded, and as I said, it is very important not to let this get us down. It is only here in Europe where there is, let's say, more regulation. Europe is completely irrelevant internationally, even if everything here is completely banned, delisted, and all trading is restricted. It would probably weaken Bitcoin a little bit, but it would definitely not cause Bitcoin to fall. What's unfortunate about the whole MiCA regulation is exactly what you can see here. I actually found a really nice graphic that shows that the US has a decent economy, or a better economy than the EU, at least over the last 10 years. If you look at it, the EU economy is going downhill fast, and now the chief economists are thinking about what they can do. I think we need more regulation, so they believe that by adding more regulations, they can strengthen the economy again. But that's exactly the problem. The MiCA regulation is making everything even harder for exchanges, for Bitcoin companies and so on, which leads to even more innovation leaving the country. We can't strengthen a failing economy by piling on more regulations. That just doesn't make any sense. And now here comes the good news, and the reason why I'm telling you not to panic, at least not because of Tether or USD, at least not in the short term. Long term, you can always criticize Tether and whether it's really backed. I'm a bit skeptical about that too. But nothing is going to explode in the short term, and you can see that because Tether bought another $700 million worth of Bitcoin today, and they now hold $7.7 billion in Bitcoin. So it's really a significant amount. They not only have a relevant number of Bitcoins, but also other assets like short-term US Treasury bonds, and they actually hold more US Treasury bonds than Germany does right now. And this, I'd say, might also be a sign that on the very day when all this panic starts, they're saying, hey, we're going to invest even more in Bitcoin. Because that's the important thing here with Tether. Tether continues to buy Bitcoin, strengthening Bitcoin's price. Some believe Tether could face issues if Bitcoin crashes. If Bitcoin falls, Tether and MicroStrategy might be pressured. Hong Kong is exploring the idea of a Bitcoin reserve. The Bitcoin price could drop massively, just like MicroStrategy, where some might think that if Bitcoin falls against the US dollar, then Tether and MicroStrategy could really be under pressure. At the same time, we're also seeing things like Hong Kong wanting to check out a Bitcoin reserve, and they might even want to create a Bitcoin reserve. So there are some exciting developments happening right now. We also see Michael Saylor. Where did I put that news? Michael Saylor isn't letting anything rattle him and bought more. Bitcoin last week for $609 million. MicroStrategy now holds Bitcoin worth $42 billion. And if you compare that, we have MicroStrategy with $42 billion and Tether with $7.7 billion. You can see that Tether is also a major player among the top holdings. In the end, yes, you can view the whole Tether structure critically, and I definitely do see it that way. Ultimately, it's just a $1 proxy. It's not a freedom currency. It can be censored just as easily, and you could argue it's an inflationary shitcoin if you want to put it that way. But it still leads to the Bitcoin price being pumped because they keep buying more Bitcoin with their earnings. They have massive Bitcoin holdings, as you can see, and they plan to keep accumulating Bitcoin. You have to examine the whole thing carefully and thoroughly, critically, and keep an eye on it in detail. But you can't just imagine that this is going to lead to Bitcoin crashing by 50 or 80%, like some people are saying, hey, today Bitcoin is going to crash by 80% because Tether is getting delisted from Coinbase in Europe, which is just ridiculous and with caution. Samson Mow summed it up really well in a tweet. He says that aside from Coinbase, which has invested in Circle, no other exchange has plans to delist USDT for European users in the short term. Local European regulatory authorities have granted a grace period of more than 12 months to all the FUtsters and the people spreading fake news. In 2021, which exchanges have announced the delisting of USDT for European users? The answer is just Coinbase. You can clearly see how it works. So here it is said that it will not be as bad as it is now, for example. A lot of people are claiming that all the stablecoins are going to get delisted because there are grace periods and so on. I can't really say much about that because I don't deal much with USDT. Feel free to drop your experiences in the comments below about whether you can still deal with USDT on your exchanges, whatever. I'm not a big fan of that because with USDT, you still have a US dollar shitcoin since one USDT always represents $1. That means you still have fiat money just on a blockchain level, and that's why I see it critically. But you can drop a comment below if you can confirm what Samsung said, that it's not that bad. And I believe the truth is always somewhere in the middle. It's tragic, but it's surely not the end of the world, and you can surely keep an eye on it very calmly. And I believe the truth is always somewhere in the middle. That means, yes, it is a bit tragic, but it is definitely not the end of the world, and you can definitely watch it here in a very, very relaxed manner. And anyway, market pullbacks are opportunities to buy more. Market pullbacks are opportunities to redistribute money from the weak hands to the strong hands. And for you, the question is whether you're with the weak hands or the strong hands. I'll also drop a link to 21 Bitcoin down below, where you can easily, safely, and simply buy Bitcoin. Here, you can still get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin with the code BitcoinHotel. Super, super important. And now check this out, because a lot of people are claiming that Bitcoin has failed in El Salvador. I was here at the Bitcoin farmers market, sorry for my bad Spanish, but I bought some fruits with Bitcoin. Check it out. Hi guys, I'm Mark and we're here at the Bitcoin farmers market. You can buy a whole bunch of things with Bitcoin here. You can also buy fruits with Bitcoin here. You can buy melons, carrots, bananas. And a lot of people have said that the project in El Salvador has now failed. And actually, I'm going to show you that you can still use Bitcoin here. Emma, Torsten, the APO, confused. There's only sugar on top. Raisins also. Usend. You can really buy a keyboard. Here, not everything, but like I said, you can buy Assassin's Creed big. 2 cucumbers or cucumbers in April for dollars. Don't know the name. Okay. But pay. Yeah, thanks. Now you can see. My first fruits bought with Bitcoin, actually, because normally there are these fruit stands where you can always buy stuff and they don't take Bitcoin. It costs $6 and here's a cent. And boom, cent. Awesome. Let's freaking go. Bitcoin to the moon.